Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our dear speaker for today, His Grace, SRIVAS VANACARI. All glories to the Son of the Vaishnava devotees. Devotees, we thank you all for being here as always. And today, we are very much blessed. It's the second day of April. We have His Grace, SRIVAS VANACARI will be speaking to us from the Nectarian SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. And we humbly request all devotees to mute their mics and if possible, turn on their cameras and be attentive and hopefully and believably at the end of the Sangha, we're all going to be happy. So with that being said, probably we may put the verse on the screen and then you take it over from here. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Narayana Namaskritya Narachaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashtapraya Subhadresu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. Somebody is calling me, so I just have to stop in. So further inquiries by Vidura, and we are treating text 13 as is on the screen. Yadendriyo paramosta drastrat mani pareharo vilayante tada klesha samsutasyaiva krishnasaha. Yadendriyo paramota drastra mani pareharo vilayante tada klesha samsutasyaiva krishnasaha. Yadendriyo paramosta drastra mani pareharo vilayante tada klesha samsutasyaiva krishnasaha. Word for word translation. Yada, when, indriya, senses, o paramaha, satiated. Ata, thus, drastir, admani, unto the seer, the super soul. Pare, in the transcendence. Haro, unto the supreme personality of Godhead. Vilayante, become merged in. Tada, at that time. Kalesha, miseries. Samsutasia, one who has enjoyed sound sleep. Eva, like. Krishnasaha, completely. Translation and purport. By His divine grace, Laisi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Translation. When the senses are satisfied in the seer supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in Him, all miseries are completely vanquished, as after a sound sleep. Purport. The quivering of the living entity as described above is due to the senses. Since the entire material existence is meant for sense gratification, the senses are the medium of material activities, and they cause the quivering of the steady soul. Therefore, these senses are to be detached from all such material activities. According to the impersonalists, the senses are stopped from work by merging the soul in the super soul Brahman. The devotees, however, do not stop the material senses from acting, but they engage their transcendental senses in the service of the transcendence, the supreme personality of Godhead. In either case, the activities of the senses in the material field are to be stopped by cultivation of knowledge, and if possible, they can be engaged in the service of the Lord. The senses are transcendental in nature, but their activities become polluted when contaminated by matter. Well, I'm in a class. I'll call you back when I finish.
Okay.
The senses are transcendental in nature, but their activities become polluted when contaminated by matter. We have to treat the senses to cure them of the material disease, not stop them from acting as suggested by the impersonalist. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.59, it is said that one ceases all material activities only when satisfied by contact with a better engagement. In Bhagavad Gita 2.59, it is said that one ceases all material activities only when satisfied by contact with a better engagement. Consciousness is active by nature and cannot be stopped from working. Artificially stopping a mischievous child is not the real remedy. The child must be given some better engagement so that he will automatically stop causing mischief. In the same way, The mischievous activities of the senses can be stopped only by better engagement in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, the tongue engaged in tasting prasad, or remnants of foodstuff offered to the Lord, the ears are engaged in hearing his glories, the hands engaged in cleaning the temple of the Lord, the legs engaged in visiting his temples, or when all the senses are engaged in transcendental variegatedness, then only can the transcendental senses become satiated and eternally free from material engagement. The Lord, as the supersoul residing in everyone's heart, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world, far beyond the material creation, is the seer of all our activities. Our activities must be so transcendentally saturated that the Lord will be kind enough to look upon us favorably and engage us in his transcendental service. Then only can the senses be satisfied completely and be no longer troubled by material attraction. Om Jnana Timiridasya Jnanam Jnanasalakaya Chakshuramitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahogana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asri Tadmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvesesa Sriyavadi Pasachade Satarini Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Ivacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauratvize Namaha Nityanando Vatutendur Vasuda Pranavalabaha Janavir Jivita Patir Krishna Prema Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Srimam Sachirananda Purvajaha Bhavam Mata Jagatrakta Rakta Gora Kelevaraha Advaitam Harinadvaita Racharyam Bhakti Shamshanat Bhaktavataram Nitam Sham Advaita Charya Shraye Panchatattamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shatikam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Nama Pankajanabaya Nama Pankajamaline. Nama Pankajanitraya Namaste Pankajagraye. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. Jagaritaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Sratao Panghor Mama Madhirgatima Sarvasva Padambujo Radha Mandana Mohano Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrimada Srimat Radhadgara Simhastanastau Srila Govinda Devo Christian Sevya Manusmarami Srimam Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanai Gopi Gopinata Sri Estunaham Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavanishwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Devi Krishna Mai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarvam Lakshmi Mai Sarvam Kanti Samohini Paraha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation again. When the senses are satisfied in the seer supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished as after a sound sleep. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lagayete grim yat kripatamahan vande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandalakaram Vyapta Yena Characharam Tat Padam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to today's class. It is our pleasure to share a few points on this verse with all of you. And we want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to study this verse and its purport. But before we proceed to execute this function of representing Srila Vyasadeva, we like to seek the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis so that we can at least say something that will purify our existence, that will enhance our spiritual progress, and maybe benefit the audience. So as usual, we always like to recite Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's prayer. Durga me pati me indasya, skalat pada gate muhur, swa kripa yat danena, santa santu avalambalam. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is praying to the saints, to the devotees, that my path is very difficult. My path is fraught with a slippery surface. And to walk on a very slippery road is very dangerous. But if somehow or the other one can get the support of the Vaishnavas, if the devotees can lend their stick of support, Swakripa Yastidanena, Santasantu Avalambalam, then it becomes possible that one can thread even the most dangerous path without difficulty. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also addresses the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Pangum lagayete shailam, mukam avatajet churutim. That by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that even a lame man can climb mountains, and a dumb can recite the Vedic literatures. So we're praying that by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his wonderful devotees, even though we are most unqualified, but somehow by their mercy, we can say something in this regard. So when the senses are satisfied in the seer supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished. Just like after somebody enjoys a sound sleep. So in the last two verses, the quivering nature of the soul is described. And the quivering nature is attributed to the senses. That because the living entity is identifying with the body, and the body is made of senses, and the body acts based on the desire of the senses, there seem to be some quivering in the soul. And so here it is said that the quivering stops if the senses are satisfied in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Padma Purana, it is mentioned, Ramante Yogino Nante Satyanande Chit Atmani. That the Supreme Personality of God and the Supreme Absolute is described as Rama, Ramante. Why is he called Rama? Because he is the embodiment of transcendence. The Lord is the embodiment of transcendence. And therefore, those on the path of spiritual realization, they take shelter of this embodiment of transcendence. And by taking shelter of the embodiment of transcendence, the soul no more quivers. When the soul takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the quivering stops. In other words, the satisfaction of the soul depends on the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yasmin to stay, Jagat to stum. Yasmin to stay, Jagat to stum. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, the whole universe becomes satisfied. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, every living entity is satisfied. We have heard a story of Dhruva's Muni. Once, Dhruva's Muni visited Duryodhana in Hastinapur. And Duryodhana offered exceptional worship to Dhruva's Muni. He did everything possible to please Dhruva's Muni. He offered him the best service. He offered him the best welcome, best reception. He offered him the best meal. Whatever Dhruva's Muni wanted, along with his 10,000 disciples, Duryodhana was very eager to satisfy him. And of course, he pleased Dhruva's Muni so much that Dhruva's Muni asked Duryodhana to ask for a boon. And what boon did Duryodhana ask for? He said, go and visit the Pandavas who were they were on exile, and they were in Kamyavan. He said, go to Kamyavan. Yudhishthira Maharaj is a very saintly king. If you go to visit him, he will take very good care of you. So the boon I want from you is, please go and visit Kamyavan, see Yudhishthira Maharaj and his brothers and their wife and their mother. That's a boon Duryodhana asked for from Dhruva's Muni. But he said, go there after they have all taken lunch. Go there after Draupadi had taken his lunch. So Dhruva's Muni has asked Duryodhana to ask for a boon, and this is the boon he has asked for. So immediately, Dhruva's Muni and his 10,000 disciples, they departed for Kamyavan. They arrived there just after all the Pandavas have taken their lunch, and Draupadi had also taken his lunch. So when he arrived, Yudhishthira Maharaj welcomed him very nicely. And then immediately they sensed some trouble, because Draupadi has been awarded a very special pot Akshapatra. So long as Draupadi has not eaten, he can feed any number of people from that pot. But once he has eaten, the pot cannot produce any food any longer for that day. Once she has eaten, the function of the pot ceases for that day until the next day. And that is why, and that is why I don't know why people are calling me at this hour. And that is why uh, Duryodhan asked for that boon. He should go to the Pandavas when the Pandavas had eaten, and particularly when Draupadi had taken her lunch. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was in great anxiety because Draupadi had eaten and they're in the forest. How are they going to take care of this great sadhu, great rishi, great muni with his 10,000 disciples? And Durvasa Muni is a very temperamental sadhu. It's a very temperamental sage. If you provoke him, the least provocation, he would create havoc. He would curse. He would do many things. So everybody was always scared of him. Nobody wanted to displace Durvasa Muni. So Yudhishthira Maharaj was in great anxiety. How they're going to avert this trouble? Because how are they going to feed this temperamental, quick-tempered sadhu and his 10,000 disciples? So immediately, Yudhishthira Maharaj said, all right, why don't you go and take a bath while we arrange your lunch? And Durvasa Muni said, yes, yes, it's normal. That's the natural process. First, you take a bath, you cool down your systems, you feel fresh, then you take lunch. So we are going to have a bath and we come back. And then the anxiety began. How are they going to provide food for Durvasa Muni and 10,000 disciples? So at that time, Draupadi began to meditate on Krishna. He began to call on Krishna. Krishna, please do something. Please intervene. Please come to our aid. Otherwise, this temperamental, quick-tempered sadhu will vanquish our whole dynasty. And since Draupadi is such a dear devotee to Krishna, immediately, even though Krishna was in Dwaraka, he appeared in Kamyavan and told Draupadi, I'm very hungry. Can you get me something to eat? And Draupadi said, sorry, my lord, my Akshapatra is dry now. Until tomorrow, there's nothing I can do. I can't get anything for you to eat. And Krishna said, look into the pot. If you just find one little piece of vegetable, I will be sufficient with that. Draupadi looked everywhere, he couldn't find because he had washed the pot. And Krishna took the pot himself and looked in some corner. He saw a very tiny piece of vegetable, spinach. He took it. As soon as Krishna took that little spinach vegetable in his mouth, he belched to indicate that he was completely satisfied. And as soon as Krishna belched, then Durvasa Muni and all his 10,000 disciples, they began to belch all over the lake. And they were feeling so satisfied. Their stomachs were bloating with food. So what to do? They decided that they don't want to go and embarrass themselves. they don't want to go to Yudhishthira Maharaj and they cannot eat his food. Yudhishthira Maharaj had told them they should go to the pond, take a bath, come back and take lunch, and now their stomachs are full. How are they going to eat? How are they going to honor Yudhishthira Maharaj's lunch? Better they don't go there at all. So immediately, Durvasa Muni and his 10,000 disciples, they run away. Even before Yudhishthira Maharaj sent Sahadev to go and call them, because they were waiting and waiting and they were not coming. So when Sahadev got to the lake, he could not find Durvasa Muni and his disciples. And so they asked other sadhus who were around, and they said, oh, Durvasa Muni has gone this direction. He has practically run away from here with his disciples. So the statement, Yasmin to stay Jagat to Shtam, is very much applicable here. That when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, then every living entity becomes satisfied. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, then the whole universe is satisfied. And this is the solution to the quivering living entity as described in the 2 or 3 verses, that so long as the living entity is not engaged in Krishna's service, so long as the living entity is pursuing his individual sense gratification, the living entity will quiver. And that has been the history. It is said, Adyat Mikadi Tapatraya Tare Jare Mare, that the living entity being opposed to Krishna consciousness, he has been punished by the witch of the external energy, Maya. And therefore he suffers one misery after another. And this misery will continue. And the living entity will quiver due to the misidentification with the gross and subtle bodies. So, from time immemorial, the living entity has been opposed to devotional service. He is opposed to pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, he is quivering. Karma krodera dasahana tara lahi taya chose. Now the conditioned soul becomes a servant of lusty desires. And when these desires are not fulfilled, he becomes the servant of anger. And due to this anger, he loses his memory. And then he wanders and wanders in the material universes, life after life after life. And he never finds any peace anywhere. Then he quivers almost all the time because he is not connected to the source of his strength. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says Kama dinam katina katida palita dani dasa. That even though I have served the unlimited desires, I have served the unlimited orders of lusty desires, even though I've rendered unlimited services to these lusty desires, they have not shown me any mercy. We cannot remember how long we have lived in this material creation. And we cannot remember how many times we have tried to serve lusty desires. But lusty desires never leave us. So although we have rendered so much service, we have been sent loyal service to lusty desires, but they never show any mercy. And the living entity does not feel ashamed of rendering service to lusty desires. And so our existence in the material world continues. Because so long as we continue to serve these lusty desires, and no matter how much we serve these lusty desires, they don't show us any favor, then we remain eternally conditioned. Nitya Badas. Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that the greatest enemy of the living entity is lust. Karma isa kroda isha raja guna samam bhava. The lust, or Arjuna, is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is born out of the contact with the mode of material passion, which is later transformed into wrath, the all-devouring enemy of the living entity. So lust is the cause of the quivering of the living entity. So long as the senses are attached to the objects of sense gratification, the living entity will quiver. So long as we try to satisfy our lusty desires, the living entity will always quiver. But as soon as the living entity takes to the process of Krishna consciousness and endeavors every moment trying to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the quivering stops. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, Sarvo Padi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratrenandri Malam Hirisekena Hirisekesha Sevanam Bhakti Ochite. That devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Supreme, in the service of Hrishikesh, who is the master of the senses. As soon as the senses are engaged in the service of Hrishikesh, the senses become free from material designation, and then in addition, they also become purified. And when the senses become purified, then they can take pleasure in the seer supersoul. They can take pleasure in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Inasmuch as the senses are not purified, the senses, they lean towards sense gratification. They lean towards trying to satisfy lusty desires. And these activities will simply make the soul to quiver. So therefore, one has to take to the process of Krishna consciousness. when the eyes, Prabhupada mentions in the purport how to engage the various senses for the purposes of purification. He said, when the eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, that will stop the senses from quivering. And the example is the gopis. Gopiyas tapakim acharam yat anushya rupam. Rupam means the form of the Lord. The gopis perform so much austerity to have darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And once they're able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they focus their attention on the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't want to see anything else. So the eyes should be utilized in looking at the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is considered the perfection of the eyes. The eyes are glorified when they are attached to the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The eyes are considered perfect when the eyes become attached to seeing the beautiful forms of Krishna. In fact, it is said that if one has the opportunity to see the beautiful form of Nandana Krishna, if one has the opportunity to see the beautiful form of the Lord, what is the use of looking elsewhere? What is the use of using the eyes for something else? So, by engaging the eyes in seeing the beautiful form of Krishna, the eyes are purified and the eyes become blissful. The eyes enjoy drinking the beauty of Krishna. Just as when Krishna walks amongst his friends, the cowherd boys, their attention, their gaze is on the form of Krishna. They cannot look elsewhere. Wherever Krishna is going, the cowherd boys, they are looking in that direction. They don't want to miss one moment of that beautiful form. Even the cows and even the birds in the forest, when they see the beauty of Krishna and Balaram, they don't want to turn their eyes away from Krishna because those forms are so beautiful. They just drink the sweetness of their beauty and they don't want to look elsewhere. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada mentions, when the tongue is engaged in tasting prasadam, remnants of foodstuffs offered to the Lord, it brings purification to the tongue. Therefore, Sanatana Goswami in the Hari Bhakti Vilas says, Naivyadam Jagadisasya Anapadikam Bhaksya Bhaktasya Vicharas Nasti Tadvijaha. The all Brahmanas, Dvija, all Brahmanas, those foodstuffs and beverages that have been offered to Sri Krishna for his pleasure are transcendental. And one should never try to distinguish them as ordinary eatables. Anything that is offered to Krishna becomes transcendental. And one should never consider them to be ordinary. And we can see the power of prasadam. Before we came to Krishna consciousness, we have no idea what prasadam is. But as soon as we tasted prasadam, in fact, I used to wonder whether I can give up eating meat because I was such a tiger. When I read Prabhupada's books and they were saying no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex, the thing that struck me most was meat eating because all my life I've eaten meat. How am I going to give it up? But as soon as I tasted Krishna Prasadam, as soon as I tasted kachoris, uh, different preparations, I lost taste for eating meat. I lost taste for all those things they consider very wonderful. And I can understand that this food offered to Krishna, it is not ordinary. It has a special taste. So Sanatana Goswami is saying that the food that is offered to Krishna assumes a transcendental nature like the Lord, and one should not consider them to be ordinary. And we can see that by eating Krishna Prasadam, we have made so much advancement. I always speak for myself. I can say that Prasadam has changed my life. If there were no Prasadam served in the ISKCON temple, I don't think I would have stayed. And I'm sure many devotees have that realization. Prasadam is so powerful. Prasadam has transformed lives. Prasadam has made devotees. Prasadam has done a lot for the conditioned soul. And that's why Prabhupada insists that there should be food for life. Prasadam distribution is not only quenching the hunger of the hungry, but it actually quenches our spiritual hunger. It stops the living entity from quivering just by taking Krishna Prasadam. So, taking Prasadam is a way of engaging the tongue. Then Prabhupada says the ears should also be engaged. When the ears are engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, then the ears will become purified. And if we remember in the 4th canto of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, when Lord Vishnu appeared on the sacrificial arena of Prithu Maharaj requested for one boon. And what was the boon? He requested that the Lord should give him 1 million years so that he can drink the nectarian beverage of the glories of the Lord. Na kamaye na tatat abi aham kwachin. He wants to drink the nectar emanating from the glories of the Lord. And 2 years are not enough. So Prithu Maharaj requested Lord Vishnu that please, I want one boon. And the boon I want from you is I want 1 million years so that I can multiply the number of ways to drink the nectar coming from your glories. So hearing is actually drinking the nectar of Krishna's pastimes. In fact, Uddhava, in a discussion with Krishna, he says that Nrinam Paramam Piyusham Karna Piyusham Nrinam Paramam Karna Piyusham, that your glories, the nectar of your glories, is compared to Amrita, a sweet beverage that can be drunk through the ears. So hearing Krishna's pastimes, hearing Krishna's holy names, hearing Krishna's activities is like drinking a sweet beverage through the ears. It is that activity that can purify the ears and make the ears free from quivering. So long as the senses are engaged in sense gratification, they quiver. But as soon as the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, the quivering stops. Prabhupada went on to say, we can engage our hands in cleaning the temple, and we can engage our legs in visiting the temple or holy places. And we find uh, Ambarish Maharaj was an example of this. Pado Hare Kshetra Fada Nusharpane. That Ambarish Maharaj, he engaged his legs in walking to holy places. He engaged his legs in walking to the temple of the Lord. He engaged his head in bowing down before the Lord. He engaged his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord. And in this way, Ambarish Maharaj engaged all his knowledge acquiring senses and working senses in the service of the Lord. And by such engagement, the senses became purified. And once the senses are purified, then they stop the quivering. So this is the process by which one can stop this quivering of the soul due to the activities of the senses. Lokiki vidaki vapi ya kriya kriyate muni. O great sage, anyone who aspires for devotional service should perform his activities in such a way that is favorable for the service of the Lord. Whatever activity we are performing, we should perform in such a way it becomes favorable in the service of the Lord. This is how we can move away from sense gratification to devotional service. And by doing that, the Lord becomes pleased and the Lord gives us more mercy. Uddhava, a very intimate devotee of Lord Krishna, says, Trayopa Bhukta Shrat Ganda Vaso Lankara Chachitaha Uchista Bojino Dasas Tavamayam Yajantihi. He said, simply by decorating our bodies with the garlands, with the fragrant oils, with the clothes, with the ornaments that you have already enjoyed, and by eating the remnants of your foodstuff, we, your servants, we can easily conquer your illusory energy. In other words, Uddhava is saying the process by which the living entity can stop this quivering, the process by which the living entity can be free from sense gratification is to accept the remnants of items that have been utilized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, by accepting the remnants of foodstuff that the Lord has enjoyed, accepting the remnants of garlands that the Lord has enjoyed, accepting the remnants of jewelry, ornaments the Lord has enjoyed, even the clothing the Lord has enjoyed. By accepting those items, they are very purifying. And one can become freed from the activities of sense gratification. And then one can be freed from the quivering of the senses. Krishna is always ready to help the devotee. It says, Samsuta Siaiva Krishna Saya. All miseries are completely vanquished as soon as one becomes a dedicated servant of the Lord. As soon as one begins to relish devotional service, all the miseries are vanquished. Because Krishna is very eager to place his lotus feet in the heart of his devotees. Krishna is very eager to deliver his devotees from this material world. And so, as soon as the devotee makes a sincere effort, Krishna reciprocates in such a wonderful way. Madhurya Ishwaraya, Madhurya Kripadi, Yogamaya Dasiyahan Rasadi Lila Rasa. Now, Vrindavan is the storehouse of Krishna's mercy and his sweet opulences. That is where the spiritual energy working as a maid servant is ready to offer all benedictions to the devotees of the Lord. Krishna manifests his opulence, the greatest of his opulence in Vrindavan. Krishna manifests his mercy in Vrindavan. And therefore, being in the mood of the devotees of Vrindavan, serving in the mood of the devotees of Vrindavan, chanting in the mood of the devotees of Vrindavan, we can easily attract the mercy of Krishna. In fact, Lord Brahma glorifies the residents of Vrindavan. Lord Brahma says, Aho bhagyam, Nanda Gopa Vrajakusham. Yan Mitra Pramanadam, Purna Brahma Sanatanam. That the residents of Vrindavan are so fortunate because Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, has become their friend. Krishna is with them 24 hours. And Krishna is so favorably disposed towards the residents of Vrindavan. Therefore, such great devotees like Brahma and Uddhava, they prayed to take birth in Vrindavan. Actually, it is said that Uddhava became a blade of grass. Until today, Uddhava is still living in Vrindavan in the form of grass. And Brahma is praying that if he has to take another birth, he wants to also take birth in the place of Vrindavan. Because the mercy of Krishna's mercy is unlimited in Vrindavan. Krishna displays his greatest opulence of mercy in Vrindavan, in Brajabhumi. And therefore, anyone who associates with Vrindavan, if you remember Vrindavan, if you chant the glories of Vrindavan, if you somehow or the other associates with Vrindavan, you can easily tap into that mercy that Krishna is displaying in the land of Brajabhumi. And this will facilitate the living entity ending his life of quivering. So long as the living entity is absorbed in sense gratification, he has to quiver. But as soon as the living entity becomes absorbed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes free from this quivering. So material existence is the cause of quivering, and devotional service is the solution to quivering. So in the mood of the residents of Vrindavan, in the mood of the service of the residents of Vrindavan, one can saturate his spiritual life in such a way that Krishna becomes favorably disposed towards such a devotee. And as soon as Krishna is favorably disposed towards such a devotee, the quivering stops. As Srila Prabhupada has mentioned here, Srila Prabhupada says that our activities must be so transcendentally saturated that the Lord will be kind enough to look upon us favorably and engage us in his transcendental service. That is the goal, to be able to engage in the transcendental service of the Lord. Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. When we get the opportunity to render service to Lord Vasudeva, when we get the opportunity to associate with the devotees of Vasudeva and engage in his service, this will bring about knowledge, acquisition of knowledge. It will bring about detachment. And this detachment will help the senses to become free from the quivering, to become free from sense gratification, and stop the quivering. So the opportunity is ours, how to adopt the process of devotional service and stop this process of quivering due to sense enjoyment, due to serving lusty desires. And that is what material life is about, becoming a servant of lusty desires. And the process of devotional service is to become a servant of Krishna. And once you become a servant of Krishna, then the quivering stops. We shall end here. In the any comments? They are welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful delivery, as always. Dear devotees, if anyone may have questions, comments, reflections, realizations you may want to ask or share, please indicate by using the hand emoji, and you'll be asked to unmute to ask your questions or share your reflections. Hare Krishna. Well, Prabhuji, you had indicated that you shared the pastime of Dhruva Samuni.
Yeah.
Visiting and tempting them, and then when the pot, that wonderful pot. Well, the bottom line is that when Krishna is satisfied, everyone also becomes
satisfied.
So the question I have with that is, if Krishna is called Atmaram, self-satisfied,
yeah,
then what makes him not satisfied until someone does something and then he becomes satisfied? And if Krishna becomes satisfied, all other entities also automatically become satisfied. Then why am I not satisfied? Does that mean that Krishna is not satisfied? There are so many people in this material world that are not satisfied. Does that mean that Krishna is not satisfied? So if you may shed some light on this, please.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your interesting questions. Yeah. Krishna is Atmaram. That is true. Actually, Srila Prabhupada, he explains, and Lord Chaitanya gave a very, very elaborate description of the Admaram verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Krishna is Admaram, he's self-satisfied. Then what is the question of depending on other people's activities to satisfy him? So Prabhupada explains that, yes, Krishna does not need anyone's activity to satisfy him. Actually, everyone is emanating from Krishna. Whatever activity we may perform to please the Lord is actually coming from him. The ability, the thought, the energy, whatever we do is actually coming from the Lord. So, Krishna, everything comes from him. But Srila Prabhupada explains that even though Krishna is Atmaram, and even though Krishna is self-satisfied, but Krishna multiply himself. It's like Krishna multiply himself into the living entities. You know, it is said Lord has two divisions of expansions. He has the Vishnu Tattva expansions, and he has the Vibhinamshas expansions. The Vibhinamshas expansions are the living entities, and the Vishnu Tattva expansions or Swamsa expansions are the Vishnu Tattvas. So the Lord expanded into these two types of expansions, Swamsas and Vibhinamshas, all in an attempt to expand that pleasure. So expanding into Vishnu forms and expanding into the living entities is simply meant to expand his pleasure. So every living entity is simply a part of the pleasure of the Supreme Whole. And so because Krishna wants to expand his pleasure unlimitedly, he expanded into the various living entities and the various Vishnu forms. And so the purpose of the expansion is to expand the pleasure. That is the goal of the expansion. That is the purpose of Krishna expanding into Vibhinamshas and expanding into Swamsas. So when these expanded forms are not acting in accordance to Krishna's desire, in accordance to Krishna's plan, it is some form of disturbance because there's a program. The Lord does these things for a program. And then some living entities decide that no, they don't want to be part of that program. So even though the Lord is complete, he is Purnam, but the original plan for the expansion is to expand that joy, expand that bliss, expand everything unlimitedly. So that is the original plan. So when some living entities, because of the individual free will, decide to do something else, the Lord is not happy. And therefore, he wants everybody else back into that master plan that is responsible, or that was the original plan for expanding into many, many living entities. Bahushyam, it is said in the beginning the Lord was one, and he decided to expand into many. Bahushyam, Eko Bahushyam, he was one, and then he expanded into many. What is the reason for expanding into many? So that he can expand his pleasure unlimitedly. And so that is the purpose of this expansion. But some living entities do not want to be part of that expansion. They don't want to fulfill that purpose of that expansion. And even though the Lord is satisfied, he is always satisfied, but he is not happy that some living entities are defying that authority. They are disobeying that plan. They are trying to disrupt that plan. And that is why the Lord has to send in pure devotees in the material world. He has to come to speak SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, SRIMAD Bhagavad Gita. He has to give the scriptures just to reintegrate all the living entities that have gone on their own. Because the original plan of the Lord for his expansions is to expand his joy unlimitedly. But those living entities that have gone away because of the free will, they've some sort of gone against the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because of that plan, Krishna is making all these arrangements to bring us back to fall in line with his original plan of expanding his joy, his pleasure unlimitedly. That does not mean that he is not enjoying his pleasure. He was already enjoying his pleasure alone, but he just thought, why don't I expand it unlimitedly so that the joy can be unlimitedly? So that's why he expanded into the living entities and into the swarm cells for the purpose of expanding that pleasure. But nevertheless, whether the conditioned souls agree with the Lord or they don't agree with him, whether we serve the Lord or we don't serve him, his pleasure goes on unabated. It does not disturb him, but the only disturbance is the original plan is being disturbed by those living entities that want to be on their own and pursue sense gratification. So this is the answer to your first question. I don't know whether this satisfies your question.
Yes, very much.
Okay. Then the second question is, if Krishna Yasmin to stay Jagat Tushtam, if the Supreme Lord is satisfied, then why is it that we, the living entities, are not satisfied? That's your second question.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Again, we can say that this satisfaction is spiritual satisfaction. Is spiritual satisfaction. It's not material satisfaction. Any living entity that is spiritually inclined, any living entity that is in line with the Supreme Lord, that is connected to the Supreme Lord spiritually, anything that satisfies the Lord also satisfies the living entity. In fact, as we progress on the path of Krishna consciousness and we become more and more inclined to satisfying the Lord, you will see that your chanting, your dancing, your every activity in Krishna consciousness is very satisfying because those activities are satisfying to the Lord. We will become more and more satisfied in Krishna consciousness the more we move away from material sense enjoyment. The more we are inclined to material sense enjoyment, the less we experience the satisfaction of the Lord. And the more we are inclined, or the more we move away from material sense enjoyment and inclined to devotional service, the more we can feel that is the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. when we engage in any spiritual activity, immediately we can begin to feel the satisfaction of that activity. Whether it is japa, whether it is kirtan, whether it is SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, whether it is preaching, many devotees can ascertain that when they sincerely engage in all of these activities, immediately they feel some satisfaction. So the satisfaction we are talking about is not material satisfaction, but spiritual. And therefore, the living entity has to be inclined towards the spiritual satisfaction in order, or spiritual activity, devotional activities, in order to perceive that satisfaction from the Lord, in order to experience that satisfaction from the Lord. But it is a fact that when we do very sincere service, we can feel that satisfaction. When you do very nice kirtan, you become very satisfied because Krishna is satisfied. When you do nice preaching, you feel very satisfied because Krishna is satisfied. So the satisfaction is not material, it is spiritual. And so long as our senses are still inclined towards sense gratification, we cannot perceive the satisfaction. We cannot experience the satisfaction. Whereas the more we are detached from sense gratification, the more we will experience the satisfaction. And that is why this verse is saying that when the living entity is satisfied in the seer self, when he is satisfied in the seer self, then the quivering stops. So satisfied in the seer self simply means spiritual satisfaction. It says, the quivering of the living entity as described above is due to sense. No, it says, sorry. I'm reading something else, sorry. It says, when the senses are satisfied in the seer super soul, the personality of Godhead, emerge in him, all miseries completely vanquish. All miseries are completely vanquished as after a sound sleep. So the satisfaction in the soul, in the living entity, must be related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, it's a spiritual activity. One cannot remain in material consciousness. One cannot remain in the sense, on the path of sense gratification, and want to feel spiritual satisfaction. The satisfaction is spiritual. So only those who are on the spiritual platform, they can feel the satisfaction. And that we can't deny. We have experienced it. That anytime we do something very nice for Krishna, we can feel the satisfaction. Anytime we do some nice preaching, you feel satisfied. Anytime you do some nice japa, you feel satisfied. Anytime you do some nice kirtan, you feel satisfied. Why? Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied, and because we have moved onto the spiritual plane. We are associating with the spiritual plane, and therefore we can experience the satisfaction. So to experience the satisfaction means we have to give up sense gratification. Does that answer your question, Sir Prabhu?
Yes.
Thank you
so much. Yes, very, very much. Thank you so much for the answers to my questions. Sometimes when you read something or you hear something, you think this is so difficult to understand, so difficult to be answered. And then you ask, and when it is answered, you realize that, wow, why didn't I understand it in the first place? So thank you so much. His Grace Chakra Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Chakra Prabhu. My blessings.
Dandavana, all glories to Gurudev, all glories to Prabhupada, and all glories
Jai.
to you.
All glories to Gurudev Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. My question follows.
Okay.
The example you gave to from
We're not
Draupadi
hearing you.
sports.
Maybe you're muted.
Am I? No, I'm not muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear now.
Okay. Yeah, the example you gave about Draupadi sports.
Yeah.
It was Draupadi who was trying to, beg Krishna for something. But Durvasa Muni and the disciples had directly got nothing to do with pleasing Krishna.
That's right.
And yet, when Krishna was satisfied, they were satisfied.
Okay.
So if I could understand this question, is that if Durvasa Muni and the disciples were not doing anything directly to please Krishna, but yet once Krishna got satisfied, they were satisfied. Then why is it that if Krishna gets satisfied, those of us who are not even doing anything to please him, why don't we get satisfied? And once we are not satisfied, then it means Krishna is not satisfied.
Yeah.
Because if that logic holds, then it means once Krishna gets satisfied, we all should be satisfied.
Yes. Thank you for your question. Actually, Durvas Muni is a very special personality. Durvas Muni is an incarnation of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is Param Vaishnav. Yata Sambhu. What is the verse? He's a supreme Vaishnav. He's a great devotee of the Lord. Yata Vaishnav Sambhu. Yata Vaishnav Sambhu. He's a great Vaishnav. And so, Durvasa Muni, even though he's quick-tempered, he's temperamental, and he does all kinds of things, but still, he is considered a great devotee of Lord Krishna. So, with his 10,000 disciples, obviously, he does things to please Krishna. There is one pastime that once Durvasa Muni has an ashram in Vrindavan on the eastern side of the Yamuna. Durvasa Muni went to the forest where the cowherd boys and Krishna, they are wrestling. And Durvasa Muni, he was watching the game going on between Krishna and the cowherd boys. Sometimes Krishna will be defeated by Sudama, and sometimes Krishna will defeat Sudama. So as the Rasa Muni was watching this scene, he began to doubt that this boy wrestling with these cowhead boys, can this be the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Can this be my Lord? Just like Brahma also. Brahma was confused when he saw Krishna eating his laddu with his left hand. Brahma was bewildered. How can my Supreme Master, how can the boss of the creation, how can he sit among these small boys and he's not even eating according to etiquette? He's eating with his left hand. That bewildered Brahma. And that's why Brahma came to steal the cows to test the potency of Krishna. And he was embarrassed. So similarly, it is said that Durvasa Muni was watching the pastimes of Krishna and his cowherd boys. And as they were wrestling, sometimes Krishna was put on the ground. Sometimes Krishna would put one person on the ground. And so he was watching and said, how can the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how can he wrestle with these small boys? And he is defeated. I can't believe this. So as he was thinking like this, Krishna understood that this my devotee, Durvasa Muni, he has some doubts. So let me clear his doubts. So Krishna took Sri Dharma by the hand, and then he went to Durvasa Muni and said, Durvasa, great sage, now tell me, between me and Sridham, who is stronger? Because Durvasa Muni has seen that Sridharma has put Krishna on the ground and some dust has touched his body. So Krishna is asking Durvasa Muni that, see, me and Sridharma, which of us is stronger? Which of us is expert? So as Durvasa Muni, of course, Durvasa Muni was enjoying the beauty of Krishna. It is said Durvasa Muni was drinking the beauty of Krishna. And so when Krishna was asking these questions, Durvasa Muni was not saying a word. He was simply drinking the beauty of Krishna, drinking the sweetness of Krishna's voice. He was just enjoying Krishna. But Krishna wanted to show to Durvasa Muni he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as Durvasa Muni was looking at Krishna and drinking Krishna's beauty, Krishna opened his mouth. And just like trying to yawn, Krishna drew Durvasa Muni into his mouth. And when Durvasa Muni entered Krishna's mouth, he found himself in a universe. And from one universe, he went to another universe. From one universe, he went to another universe. Within that short period of time, Durvasa Muni had gone to thousands of universes, smaller, medium, bigger, with Brahmas with 4 heads, 10 heads, million heads, billion heads. And the next moment, Durvasa Muni was brought out of the mouth of Krishna. And when Durvasa Muni came out of the mouth, all his doubts were cleared. Before he was thinking, how can this small boy be the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how does he allow personalities like Sridham to put him on the ground, to wrestle and defeat him? How is that possible? And so Krishna understood his doubt. He understood his mind. And Krishna took Durvasa Muni into his belly, which is nothing but the entire creation. Just like Krishna opened his mouth and Yashoda Mai saw the entire creation in Krishna's mouth. Just like Markandeya Rishi. Markandeya Rishi, he has received a boon to live a kalpa. A kalpa means the day of Brahma. And so he witnessed the annihilation, partial annihilation. And during the partial annihilation, he saw a very beautiful baby lying on the leaf of a banyan tree. And he was wondering, who is this? This whole universe is full of water. Where from this baby lying on a leaf of a banyan tree? And so Krishna inhaled, and Markandeya Muni was drawn into Krishna's nostrils, into his belly. And Markandeya, he realized that he was in a different world. That baby he was looking at, he realized that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after a while, Krishna brought him out of his nostrils. So in the same way, Durvasa Muni had that experience. So all that I'm trying to say is Durvasa Muni is not an ordinary person. And his disciples, they are not also ordinary. They are all connected to Krishna. So we shouldn't be surprised that when Krishna ate that vegetable, He immediately satisfied Durvasa Muni and his 10,000 disciples because they are all on the path of devotional service. In fact, it is said that the gopis, they recognize Durvasa Muni's spiritual position. And so from time to time, the gopis will make plenty offerings, different preparations, and they will cross the Yamuna and go and offer it to Durvasa Muni. So one time, the gopis, they were going to offer plenty preparations to Durvasa Muni, and the Yamuna was full. It was flowing with water, and there was no boat in sight. And so they were wondering how they are going to cross the river Yamuna. All of a sudden, Krishna appeared there and asked the gopis, "But where are you going with all these preparations?" And the gopis said, "Hey, dear Kanai, we are here. We want to go and offer these preparations to Durvasa Muni. But unfortunately, the river Yamuna is overflowing its banks. We can't cross. Can you help us cross this river?" And Krishna said, "Yes. I will give you a mantra. And when you chant that mantra, the river will divide into two and you can cross." And they said, "All right, what is the mantra?" And Krishna says, the mantra is Krishna Nitya Brahmachari. Krishna Nitya Brahmachari, that's the mantra. Which means Krishna is always a brahmachari. Krishna does not even see the faces of women. Krishna does not even talk to women. Krishna has nothing to do with women. The gopis couldn't stop laughing because they know Krishna. He dances with them. He talks to them. And now he's giving them a mantra that Krishna is Nitya Brahmachari. They were hiding the laugh. They were covering their mouths to laugh. But they had to cross the river also. So they had to chant that mantra. And when they chanted that mantra, River Yamuna divided into two. And so they walked across and offered Durvasa Muni all the wonderful preparations they have made for him. And Durvasa Muni ate the food in 1 second. Durvasa Muni is such a funny personality. They said he can eat so much in a minute. He can eat 10,000 people's food in 1 second. He ate that food in 1 second. And then the gopi said, "See, when we were crossing to bring your food, it was Krishna who helped us to cross. So now Krishna may not be there again, and we are going to cross the river. Can you please help us to cross the river?" And Durvasa Muni said, "Yes, I can help you." He said, what can you do?" He said, "I'll give you a mantra." I said, "What is the mantra?" Durvasa Muni has never eaten any food. Durvasa Muni has just finished eating all the preparation the gopis have brought to him. And now he's giving them a mantra that Durvasa Muni is hungry. He has never eaten any food. The gopis couldn't bear laughing. "We have just brought food for this sage. He has cleared the food. Now he is saying that Durvasa Muni has never eaten." Anyway, they decided they would try the mantra. And when they went to the river and chanted, Durvasa Muni has not eaten any food, Yamuna divided into two, and they passed. So we can see the intimacy between Durvasa Muni and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Durvasa Muni is not an ordinary sage. Even though he is temperamental, he is quick-tempered, still he's a very exalted personality, and Krishna honors him. Krishna sees him as one of his topmost devotees. So therefore, when Krishna ate that piece of spinach from the Akshak Patra, the pot of Draupadi, immediately Durvasa Muni was satisfied. Harichakra Prabhu, does that answer your question?
I believe so.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Hare Krishna. Any other question?
Yeah.
I'm seeing Prema Samputa
Yes, Professor
all the way from Croatia, right?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. So how are you, Prabhu?
Krishna, Baba, thank you so
Nice to
much.
see you.
Yeah.
Hari Hari.
Last time I missed you, I was in Delhi.
Oh,
I met it's a Bhakti Charadishwa Sama, right? Yeah,
okay.
for my graduation as a doctor in Ayurvedic medicine at Delhi.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Okay. Very good. I'm sure one day we'll meet somewhere.
Definitely. Maybe I'll visit hopefully November, December. I have a workshop at the polyclinic.
Okay. In
Accra.
Delhi.
No, in Accra.
I see. Okay.
Hopefully, yeah, I'm trying to see.
Wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, any comments, any questions?
Anyone else with something to ask or to share? Well, Prabhuji, Govinda, you have something to ask?
Oh, Govinda wanted to say something.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my
Hare
humble
Krishna, Govinda
obeisances.
Prabhu, my obeisances, all glories to good and glories to
All
Prabhupada.
glories to Gurudev, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to you.
All glories to you too.
All glories to your wonderful, wonderful presentation.
All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev. Our base, our strength, our everything.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, the transcendental knowledge is very difficult for some of us who are not advanced to understand this knowledge into that purest aspect. Yes, we've given a lot of explanation to the question asked by Sade Prabhu and Harichakra Prabhu. I had the same question, but you've already given answers. But, the statement is that when Krishna is satisfied, then all living entities are satisfied.
Yes.
Not that when he's satisfied, then the sages are satisfied, or the practitioners of devotional service or spiritual activities are satisfied. So all living entities are satisfied.
Yes.
That means automatically, when Krishna is satisfied, everyone must be satisfied. But it's like I said, it's very deep, and so it's difficult for some of us to digest it. My understanding to this is that the explanation you are giving is that even though the soul is made of Sachit Ananda Vigraha, Sachit Ananda. It's full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity.
Yeah.
But we cannot experience this bliss, the blissful aspect of the soul, Ananda aspect of the soul, until we activate it.
That's right.
This nature has to be activated through devotional service
Exactly.
before we can actually come to the platform of experiencing the joy that Krishna is talking about. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah. And that's why I said the whole thing is we have to be devotionally inclined to experience it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So actually, the fact is, we have the same nature with Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, but in the conditioned state, that is kind of covered. And so the process of bhakti uncovers the covering. And the more And the more that covering is removed, the more we can experience the Satchidananda Vigraha. So anyone on the path of bhakti is on the path of uncovering the Satchidananda Vigraha, and so that satisfaction in Krishna will reflect the soul that is becoming free from the covering. So long as the covering is there, then one cannot feel it, even though it's supposed to be there. Yeah.
Yes,
So
Maharaj,
yeah.
but would you please explain the difference? Because the material activities that people get so satisfied with, there are so many things that the materialists do, and to be satisfied, you're talking of dancing, doing kirtans, and be extremely happy. They also do their own kirtan, and they are also very, very happy. And as soon as our kirtan is over, we come back to our normal life. No, the satisfaction is gone.
No,
And once their kirtans are over, they also come back to the same unhappy situation. So
no,
what is the difference?
there's a big difference, Prabhu. There's a difference. You see, when we perform spiritual activities like singing, dancing, chanting, and all those, we feel the joy of doing it. And even though we may stop, but we have accumulated some credit, spiritual credit, that is not erased. Unlike the material activities, as soon as we finish performing an act, it is also finished. In the spiritual realm, any activity we perform, there is an eternal credit to that activity. And we build on it. We keep building on those credits. That is what Krishna is telling us in Bhagavad Gita. A little service, a little activity, a little effort on this path is never vanquished. You keep building on it moment after moment until you reach the height or the epitome of perfection. We are not on the same platform like the non-devotees. Any activity we are performing in Krishna consciousness, it is accumulating in our credit, in our spiritual bank account. That will help us to go to the next stage and next stage and next stage. But for the karmics, whatever they have to enjoy when they finish is finished. So there's a big difference. A devotee is accumulating his spiritual credits that will help him to go higher and higher and higher. But the non-devotees, they actually become more and more degraded by their actions. So there's a gulf of difference between the activities of the devotees and the activities of the non-devotees, even though they may appear the same. Srila Prabhupada explains that we may go to the same market to buy the same vegetables. We may cook with the same fire, with the same metal pots. But as soon as the food is offered to Krishna, the difference sets in. Because we were cooking with the intention of giving to Krishna. That's the spiritual beginning. And finally, when it is offered to Krishna, it attains its perfection. It becomes prashadam. And when you eat that prashadam, you become purified. Even though you bought the same burger from the same market, you cook with the same fire, with the same pot, but the intention was different, and the result is different. So for the non-devotees, their activities are temporary, and sometimes it's very degrading. For the devotees, their activities are not temporary, they are permanent and not degrading, uplifting. Because every action we perform in Krishna consciousness adds to the credit now we have, to our bank balance, spiritual bank balance. And that will help us to go to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So there's a big difference.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So any other comment? Otherwise, we call it a day. I think Hare Chakra Prabhu, your hand is still up. You have some other question?
Yes, I have a question from
Okay.
what you just said in answering
Yeah.
Govinda Prabhu's question.
Okay.
Take for instance, if you are a father in the house,
Yeah.
and you have different children, whilst one is in the primary school, one is in the secondary school, and one is in the university.
Okay.
Now, if the university person, his grades are like B or C.
Mm.
The secondary school student, his grades are also like maybe B's and C's.
That's right.
But the one in the primary school, his grades is like in the A's.
Yeah.
We know definitely that the father becomes very happy with the grade 1 person who is getting A's, even though he's in a lower grade, but because he's making such good progress, the father becomes so happy with the primary 1 student.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Krishna is also telling us that everyone follows my path in all respects.
Yeah.
In all respects, everyone follows my path. And all of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So, if what Krishna is saying is true, then how come that we even consider somebody a non-devotee? Because maybe he's in grade 1 and he's getting some A's in grade 1.
Mm.
And maybe those of us who call ourselves devotees, maybe we are in the university, but we are making C grades.
That's right.
So how do we judge? How do we conclude?
Nice point.
Maybe Krishna is very happy with the grade 1 person who is making the A's, even though he's in a lower grade, but he's making A's, gradually uplifting. And I remember reading Christ and Krishna book, the Christ and Krishna book. Ketananda Maharaj was saying something there that even the worshippers of Kali, as long as they remain in the house of the Vedas, gradually they will be elevated to the path of Bhakti.
Yes.
So, can you give some, a little bit of explanation on this?
Certainly. The fact is, everyone, actually, Krishna also says the same thing in the Bhagavad Gita 4:11. He said, everyone is on my path. Everyone is on my path. Everyone is worshiping me. Yeah. So it's a fact that all of us are on the path of Krishna consciousness. I'm just trying to look at my verse. Where's my Bhagavad Gita? That everyone is worshiping the Lord. Everybody is on the path of devotional service. to different degrees. That is a fact. Everyone is on Krishna's path. Even the non-devotee, by his actions, it will gradually bring him to the path after many, many, many births. After all, in 2 lives, 3 lives ago, we were not connected to this process. 10 lives ago, sometimes I ask myself, when Lord Chaitanya was delivering the whole universe 500 years ago, where was I? When Vasudev Datta wanted to carry the sins of the whole world on his head, and that so that everybody would go back home, and Lord Chaitanya said, you don't need to do that. I will deliver everybody. And Lord Chaitanya did. So where was I? Why was I not delivered at that time? And that means maybe I was in some lower species of life. Maybe I was on some hellish planet. Maybe I was somewhere nobody knows. I don't know either. So everyone is on the path, and gradually everyone is moving towards the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is Krishna. However, there are different grades of living entities influenced by the different modes of material nature. And because of the influence of the modes of material nature, we act differently, we think differently, we behave differently. And therefore, Krishna reciprocates with each and every living entity. After all, Krishna is a super soul in every living entity. It doesn't matter whether they're of lower species, animals, reptiles, birds, human beings, demigods. Krishna remains as a super soul in the heart of every living entity, irrespective of the species. And that shows that Krishna does not discriminate. Krishna sees every living entity as his part and parcel, his son. So from Krishna's point of view, he sees all living entities as parts and parcels of him. But according to the mode of nature that we are associating with, we gain knowledge, we become advanced in knowledge, and eventually take to the path of Krishna consciousness. In fact, in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about the 4 types of Sukritinas. Those who approach him. People approach him, those who are in misery, those who are after wealth, those who are in search of knowledge, or those who are inquisitive and those who are in search of knowledge. Krishna describes these 4 classes of living beings. And he called them Sukritinas, pious living beings. So Krishna does not discriminate that because this is worshiping Durga, this one is worshiping Kali, this. No. He simply says, whoever is on the path, seeking his mercy, seeking his help, he is considered pious. But then Krishna goes on to say, but amongst these categories, these 4 categories, the one who is in knowledge is the best. So even though Krishna accepts all of them as pious, but then He identifies that person who is in knowledge as the best. Also, when we read the chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about the different living entities in different modes. And he also says those who are in the mode of goodness are better off because they're in knowledge. So from these, we can understand that there is classification. There is classification based on the modes, based on knowledge, and based on devotion. And so those who are in the mode of goodness, those who are in knowledge, and those who are devoted, they are more dearer to Krishna than all others. That is for sure. And Krishna's own words prove this. Several times he says, Arjuna, I'm speaking this knowledge to you because you're my dear friend. I'm speaking this knowledge to you because you're austere. I'm speaking this knowledge to you because you're my devotee. So from Krishna's words, we can understand that even though all these living entities are part and parcel of Krishna and they are on the path to Krishna, yet Krishna identifies a certain class of practitioners to be more dear to him than others. So for us, it is difficult for us to say who is dear to Krishna is not dear to Krishna. It's difficult. But for Krishna, it is not difficult because he is the super soul and he understands everyone's desire. He understands everybody's activities. He is a witness to everything that is going on. So he can easily determine each and everyone's level. But for us, sometimes we may misjudge people. We may think somebody is very advanced, but actually he's not. And sometimes we may think somebody is not advanced, but actually is very advanced. So only Krishna, he is capable of passing correct judgment because he's a super soul. He is intimately related to the jiva, and he knows exactly what the jiva does every moment. But still, Krishna makes the differentiation. Krishna differentiates between the Brahmanas and non-Brahmanas. Krishna makes the difference between those in knowledge and those who are not in knowledge. Krishna makes the difference between those who are devoted, those who are not devoted. Krishna makes the differentiation between the pure devotees and those who are just sadhakas. Krishna makes the differences. So from Krishna's point of view, he can decide, he can judge who is actually very dear to him. From our point of view, we can only guess from our sensual judgment, which might not be the perfect judgment. So I do agree that we have no qualification to judge people. But Krishna, he does have that qualification to judge everyone. And yet, he categorizes the living entities according to the mode of goodness, according to the level of knowledge, according to the level of devotion, according to the level of faith, and so many other criteria that the Lord uses to classify all the living entities in this world.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Because I was the last time Mahatma Prabhu was on this platform,
Yeah.
he was explaining something and he was using the track as an example. That there
Okay.
might be a race in the track and somebody may be taking the lead almost to the finish, and out of nowhere, maybe a Nigerian fast runner will come
Yeah.
from nowhere and pass
I'm
everybody
beating.
and
Yeah.
beat everybody, and so when he said that, I was also relating it to what Jesus said in the Bible, that the last might be first, and the first
That's
may
right.
be last.
That's true. Yeah.
In other words, that wherever we are, we don't have to be complacent.
No.
We just have to, be grateful to whatever mercies that we have, and then be sincere with ourselves and do the needful.
That's
So thank you. So thank you for the explanation.
Thank you also. Actually, it is said that in the practice of Krishna consciousness, it is not a matter of being first. The first can be last, and the last can be first. As Krishna, the ultimate decision lies with Krishna. It's not that because somebody had joined a long time ago, that makes him very dear to Krishna. No, it's not like that. Somebody may even join today, but his activities are very attractive to Krishna. So it's not the number of years that actually matters. Is the sincerity of effort that Krishna is looking at. Krishna is looking at the essence. And he knows everything in detail. So therefore, our only position is we should keep praying that we remain in this process till the end. That is our prayer. That should be our prayer. We should remain in this process. Those devotees who have left their bodies in Krishna consciousness, they're very fortunate. Any of us can give up the process of Krishna consciousness tomorrow, and that would be a great misfortune. So those who have actually left their bodies in Krishna consciousness, they're very, very fortunate, because Krishna will make the necessary arrangement for their destinations, because they left their bodies in active Krishna consciousness. Those of us who are still alive, there is a risk. The risk factor is there that anything could happen tomorrow and we can give up the process and we may not get the mercy of Krishna at the time of death. So our prayer should be that somehow or the other, I should never give up this process, no matter what, until my last breath. That is a real success. If we give up our bodies in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will do something very spectacular. Krishna will intervene. So for those who have left their bodies in Krishna consciousness, it's a great boon. Those of us who are still alive, we are not very sure what will happen to us. We just have to pray that somehow or the other we can breathe our last in active Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. I think at this point, we would beg to end the class. We've gone for more than 2 hours.
Yes. Thank you so much, as always, Prabhuji, for this wonderful Krishna Katha. And the word is, we thank you all for your participation. And we believe each and every one of us, and hopefully those who are watching and whoever may be watching this later on, will also equally be satisfied, because it's Krishna. And with that, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our deepest appreciation to our revered speaker, His Gracious Srivas Vanachari, for sharing his love and wisdom with us all today. Jai. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
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 Krishna,
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 Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
Krishna,
Hare,
Hare
Rama,
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 Hare
Hare
Rama,
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 Rama
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare.
Hare.
Kapatvaradesha, Kripa Sindo Vyadivacha, Patitanam Pavanabhyo, Patitanam Yo Namo
Vishwavadibhyo,
Namaha.
Vishwabhyo, Namo
Namo
Namaha.
Namaha.
Jai,
Hare Krishna, Srivas Vanachari ki jai.
Prabhupada.
Jai.
Jai.
Jai.